Rakugo is cutting them onions this week. Holy shit. Like, the entirety of this episode, in my heart and deep down, I was truly believing that everything I was seeing in this episode was a dream. That's what I thought the episode was. Since the start of the episode to pretty much the end of the episode, I assumed it was going to be a dream. And when I saw the preview, like, there was, like, no ending credits, and the preview showed adult, children, we saw the kids, Yotaro's kids, adults. I'm like, he died. Bon died. Now, don't get me wrong, I had tears in my eyes just seeing the scene when he was going down the river, and then, he just was talking to Sukeroku, and he was like, hey, and all that, like, are you not coming with me? And I was getting very sad. I was emotional. I'm like, when are you going to switch over to finding out that he's just been in a dream this entire time? He's been in a coma, and he finally wakes up. That's what I assumed was going on. Episode continues. It doesn't stop, and I'm like, this is not a joke anymore. Please, just stop, Rakugo. Like, please, just stop. Let this man wake up. And then he goes down the river. Passes on. And I'm like, he just died. He's been dead. I didn't want to accept it, but that's sad. That's really sad. That is a really sad way to go. And I mean, I'm glad with what happened in the episode. It's sad because he's gone. And I just can't believe the way this episode was done. It was just a crazy episode, the way it got me, because I've seen so many anime, so much manga. I have watched so many television series that try to troll you an entire episode. Episode comes around to the last couple minutes or last 30 seconds, and it'll let you know everything is fine, it was just a dream. That's usually how a lot of shows are, not just anime and manga. This isn't just Japanese literature and stuff. This also could be said for, American movies, American TV shows as well. And this has happened many times to where I get trolled, but that didn't happen. Bon died. And I just want to give mad props real quick. I just want to give mad props for the writer being able to troll me, like reverse troll me that hard throughout the entirety of this episode. That's honestly something I'm just surprised about. But also, seeing how everything we saw was confirmed. For instance, every time that Bon tried to, he was seeing Sukeroku, and he saw, the god of performance, or the Shinigami, it was actually really happening. So, it confirms that, like, the supernatural and stuff in the afterlife is a part of this series. And the entirety of the episode was in purgatory, or limbo for our characters, and showing what happens after death. And I'm just surprised the series tried to add this form of closure to Bon's character. It was something that really just took me by surprise, and honestly, I understand the message here, what it's trying to do, especially with the last episode, and seeing how Bon just, was giving up his name, like he was, pretty much accepting Yotaro for who he was. But also, he was being nice to Konatsu and said he didn't regret anything about her at all. He was glad he got to spend time with her, and that he accepted her as an apprentice before he died. It just showed that he finally changed. He was willing to move on and change himself. And that was a really good moment with last week's episode. And it really shows in this episode, since this was Limbo, him moving on with his life, or moving on to the next world, or wherever his journey will take him. And it's such an emotional moment when you think about what this episode's about, once you could reflect on it and realize that everything we were seeing in this episode was actually Bon's final time probably in this series, because he has finally moved on. He is done. He's not living anymore. And when you see this episode of how he talks to Sukeroku and Mio, you're constantly questioning, like, am I seeing the real them, Or is this like an illusion? Is this something that he's just seeing because he's having a dream? And that was the question I was constantly asking myself while I was watching this episode. I was trying to figure out what the message would be here. Was he trying to come to terms with what everything happened to his life? For instance, Sukeroku, and he was able to move on past him? That's what I thought was going to happen. And in a way, it did still happen, but I figured he was going to wake up and be able to move on and be just a happier person in general. And that didn't happen. He didn't wake up, and I'm like, looking at this episode now, I'm like, holy shit, everything he was saying, everything he was doing, it was like him realizing he died. He needs to move on, and it just got me so hard when you see how this man, he just talks to Sukeroku, and they just discuss everything that's happened, and I thought it was a dream, and he's like, I think you'd probably be happy I was dead, huh? Like, you have another person to compete for Yakumo and all that, and he's like, no, that's silly. Why would I want you to die over something so stupid and childish? I'm like, bro, like, holy shit, Bond, like, all this development, everything he's getting, I'm like, holy shit, and then Mio and what she did, which, holy shit, that surprised me. Like, now that I know it wasn't just a dream or whatever, and knowing it was actually her spirit still there lingering on in limbo, I could talk about her character and appreciate what she stands for now. See, Mio, she had some despicable choices she made throughout the first season. There were some things that were pretty awful about her. And I like how in this episode, it tried to dive a little bit more into her and show that she does hold a lot of regret. And everybody, I think, in their life holds regret. That's kind of one of the big things about last week's episode. But also, in this episode, it was regret, but also being able to move on, which was the entirety of this episode, the point of it. For instance, Limbo was for the people that do not want to continue on with their soul or into the afterlife. They're just stuck in limbo and trying to figure out what they need to do. So they're holding on to these regrets and not moving on. While you have it to where at the end, Bond let go of these regrets and he was finally able to move on to something else. And that's kind of what the message of the episode was. And when Mio starts talking about Konatsu and all that, starts talking about her, just talking to Bond, how, she's glad she didn't marry him or whatever, because she would honestly find a lot of faults in him, it reveals a lot about her character, and it just shows you how much time she's had to really think about everything that's happened since she died. It just shows that she's been regretting things for such a long time, and that's why she hasn't moved on. She's been wondering about her child, Konatsu, wondering if, she did the right thing, or she's wondering, like, holy shit, I regret what I did and all that, I just hope she's okay. And it really just hits you when you see the way she feels about herself, and also the way she feels like how life, how her life was, and because of the time she lived in, is what made her like she was. And I'm like, damn, this is a very powerful episode just depicting the afterlife. But then, when you see that one scene when Bond, he gets on the stage, and he performs Rakugo again, I'm like, oh my god, it's so sad when this man is just doing Rakugo, even in the afterlife, he is doing Rakugo, he is doing what he loves, and because of this, he was able to do one final performance before he passed on. And so in a way, he died doing what he loved, even though he was in spirit, it's kind of like he did die, because then he moved on, he finally was done, he left Rakugo on a happy note, in his perspective. So I'm happy to see that. And also just to see like how his helper as well, he also died. And I'm like, bro, he died as well. And you just see how they're on the boat traveling to the other side. It just, oh my god, like this episode is such a great way to do an afterlife scene, because not a lot of shows can really handle these type of events properly. Like, a lot of this type of, stuff and stories can be very cringy and stuff that you're like, oh my god, this is just, ruining the characters or whatever. But that's not what this episode did. It was kind of just adding that closure and showing that Bond was able to stop regretting and move on. And I'm happy. I'm honestly happy for Bond. I really am. I'm sad he's dead. But I'm happy he was able to come to peace with himself and was able to get out of limbo and go on. So, yeah, Rakugo, well fucking done. Well done. You got me. Reverse trolled me. You got me with the emotions I felt in this episode. Gave me some good characterization / development for, Sukeroku and also Mio. But then the deaths as well. It just it's something I'm really impressed with, and it makes the message of previous scenes we've seen throughout the series, especially with spirits and stuff, that, Bon has seen, so much more vivid and real now, because you're like, holy shit, that really did happen. It's not something that was just a regular, hallucination. He really did see stuff like this. So, once again, Rakugo, well done. A brilliant episode. Absolutely, honestly, phenomenal episode of Rakugo. And it just... what a perfect way to conclude his character. What a great way. So, yeah. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I love you all so much. You have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.